In this video, we will be discussing how to graph linear function from any linear equation. You will be expected to apply your knowledge in class, so pause and replay as needed. Some things we will need to know before beginning our new learning goal is that we need to remember slope-intercept form is the only form we can graph a line from by hand. Slope-intercept form we know is y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope of our line and b is our y-intercept. A little bit further information into that is the fact that the slope is the change in y over the change in x, and the y-intercept is the point at which your line will cross the y-axis. So here's our y-intercept, and as you can see, if we wanted to graph a line with a slope of 3, the fraction equivalent to your slope is 3 over 1. And because this is a positive value, we're going to see that, let's use our pen here, we're going to see that the slope of a 3 is going up and a 1 is going to the right because those are both positive numbers. So we're going to move in the positive y direction and the positive x direction. So up 3 to the right 1 box. That's what we talked about on our previous learning goal. The final thing that we need to remember is that a standard form equation is also a linear function where x and y are on the same side of the equation and c is on the other side. We do not know how to graph a standard form line from a slope or a y-intercept because we cannot see the slope or y-intercept in an equation like this. So we learned how to rewrite these equations by solving for y. So first thing you need to remember is slope-intercept form means that you need to isolate y or get it into y equals form. So by doing that, if we started with the equation 2x minus 3y equals -6, first I would subtract 2x from both sides to eliminate that x from the left. And then to get y by itself, I would divide by 3. And you need to make sure you divide both terms by 3 in order to end up with something in slope-intercept form. So this format, we are ready to graph. But we can't graph something that starts out in standard form. So no graphing from this one, which is why we need to know the skill on how to rewrite it. Now that we're done remembering things that we've done in the past that will help us for this lesson, we're going to start with the equation 3x plus 2y equals 8. The first thing you're going to do is we're going to rewrite this equation in slope-intercept form. In order to do that, what I would do is, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify the fact that I have to move 3x to the right side. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And that's going to cancel on the left side, and I'm left with 2y equals -3x plus 8. From here, I'm very close to having y by itself, so I'm very close to y-intercept form or slope-intercept form. So from here, I'm going to divide by 2. And remember, when we divide by 2, we need to divide all terms on this side by 2. So -3x divided by 2 is going to give me -3/2 x. And 8 divided by 2 is going to give me 4. So now that we have our equation in slope-intercept form, we need to remember that the y-intercept, which here is 4, is where we're going to start on the graph. And the slope, which is -3 over 2, is going to be how we're going to move, or our directions. I'm going to start by graphing my y-intercept. So I'm going to graph my y-intercept, which here is 4. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to make a point. After that, I'm going to use the graph and the slope to graph the point, or the slope -3 over 2. It could be read as -3 over 2, or 3 over negative 2. The directions that would be associated with these would be, because the y is negative, down 3, and because the x is positive, to the right 2, or it could be read as up 3, and then because the x is negative, to the left 2. So you need to make sure that you know negatives and positives for both your change in y and your change in x. So I'm going to start with this first one by going down 3 and to the right 2. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3 boxes and count over 2 to the right and make a point. Down 1, 2, 3 boxes, count 2 to the right and make a point. 1, 2, 3 down, 1, 2 to the right and make a point. I'm going to do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 to the right and make a point. Now, although I only really need to connect 5 points as a minimum if I can fit it, I'm just going to show you how I could have used this slope as well. I could have went up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left 2. Notice how that still remains on that same line. So now I have rewritten my equation, graphed the y-intercept, used the slope to move. So now please pick up your ruler and connect your points. Make sure that your line extends and has arrows on either end. So now I have connected the points with a ruler, and I have made sure that I used arrows and extended on both ends. The last thing I need to do is I need to write my original equation. So we're going to go back up to this guy on the line. The reason you want to go back to the original equation is because what if by accident you messed up when you rewrote this equation? You always want to make sure you go back up to the original equation because that's what you were asked to graph. So 3x plus 2y equals 8 was my original equation. So that is what I am going to put on the line. So before you move on, you always want to make sure, did you write the equation on the line? Do you have arrows? Did we check a point? Oh, no, we did not. So I want to check a point. And I always, again, want to go back to my original equation to check a point. So I'm going to look at the point 2, 1. That's the point I'm going to check because it has small numbers. So 3 times my x value, which is 2, plus 2 times my y value, which is 1, should equal 8. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. And here I get 6 plus 2 is 8, which is in fact the correct one. So now I checked a point. Did we think of Mr. Slope Guy? Mr. Slope Guy is a great resource for you to check your line to see if his slope looks correct. So we had a negative slope over here. So does my line in fact go in the same direction as the negative slope? Yes, it does. So we're going to work through one more example to make sure that we've got all of these steps down. You're going to first rewrite this equation in slope-intercept form. Please pause the video and check back to make sure that you did in fact get the correct equivalent equation. When I rewrite this in slope-intercept form, I should get y equals 3x minus 5. I made sure to move the x term. Then I divided off the coefficient of y. Make sure that you don't miss this negative attached to the 2 because that will have a big impact on your answer. So now that my slope is 3, I'm going to look at that as a fraction. That could be either 3 over 1 or it could be negative 3 over negative 1. Remember the directions associated with this for my change in y. If my change in y is positive, it's up. If my change in x is positive, it's to the right. If my change in y is negative, it's down. If my change in y, or I'm sorry, my change in x is negative, it's going to be to the left. You can choose to start with either one of those slopes. But before we use the slope, we need to graph our y-intercept. So my y-intercept is -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the negative direction, which is why I went down. So now from here, because I'm towards the bottom of the graph, I'm going to use the slope that has me move up. So 1, 2, 3 up and 1 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 up and 1 to the right. 1, 2, 3 up, 1 to the right. And I'm going to do one in the opposite direction just so I can practice that as well. 1, 2, 3 down and 1 to the left. So now I have 5 points. I am ready to connect my points. Make sure I have arrows and rewriting the original equation on my line. 6x minus 2y equals 10. I want to make sure that my line is correct, so you should definitely make sure you check a point, either using your calculator or substituting back in. What I am going to ask for you to do is see if you can answer the extend your thinking question, and if so, we'll check that in class tomorrow. In this video, we discussed how to graph linear functions from any linear equation. You need to make sure that you rewrite it in slope-intercept form before getting started. You will be expected to apply your knowledge in class, so go back and replay if needed. Make sure to complete the back of this worksheet. Please bring any questions you have with you to class.